Okay. Our next session, iron-based health supplement Synthesit recharges cell and organism metabolism with potential antioxidative and anti-aging effects. Take a deep breath on that. If you have a phone, we'd ask you to just turn that to silent or vibrate mode, please. It'll just help keep everything a little bit easier here. And our speaker today, Dr. Marina Dukhanova, she's a cell biologist and immunologist with special interest in cell metabolism, immunity, and cell-cell interaction. She received her diploma in physiology in the Lomonosov Moscow State University and doctorate in biomedical sciences in the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And Dr. Dukhanova, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction. Indeed, it's my great pleasure to introduce Synthesit here on this stage, and I'm very fascinated to talk about its particular purposes. So thanks again. Happy to be here and happy to see everyone here. Shall we start? So first a bit of that introduction, but 30% of world population suffer from anemia. And it's a very severe condition that interact with your cognitive performance, with physical status and behavior. It can be dangerous for women, for men. It can restrict your immunity, resistant towards bacterial and viral infections. It can impact your muscle energetics, can impact your lifestyle, can also influence pregnancy and quality of children's life. So it's severe. And what is important is that chronic treatment is required during the whole life for the anemia patients. Okay, so now of course we have a number of products that are available for counteract anemia in different patients, different consumers. Those are dietary products or intravenous based applications. So for dietary products, the major restriction is that intake cannot be sufficient enough. Moreover, if you require the chronic applications, it means that it can lead to problems with your digestive systems, so there's risk of highly oxidative activity for iron. For drug supplementation, it's more or less the same, but the intake is slightly better. For intravenous supplementation, it's very good if you need to really severe interfere and increase your iron level. However, it's increased for your immune system. It's risk for your blood homogenesis, homeostasis. And it can be toxic, it can be pro-inflammatory. So we don't want that, obviously, for the chronic applications. So Synthesit is a unique bioactive iron. It's based on the ferrum-3 citrate. It contains not raw materials of mineral origins. There are no plant or animal materials involved, only mineral. It is a product of unique synthesis, which requires different physical and chemical processes and leads to the development of highly bioactive, highly biocompatible iron that we use in our product. Okay, so first of all, I want to share what was the opinion of the people who intake Synthesit during the chronic applications. First of all, 95% of Synthesit consumers reported the benefits for their life quality. And if you imagine, this is like very promising. So what were the particular things that were noticed among the patients? So first of all, it's of course improved daily and physical activity, which was reported for 77% of the patients. And that means increase of daily life quality, which is very good for the patients with anemia. It's really challenging to achieve this during long-term or short-term applications for other products. Next, people reported the better sleep quality and higher cognitive skills. And for sleep quality, it's around 70% and around 30% had improved cognitive skills during the Synthesit intake. Next, people said that regenerative capacities were really improved. Particularly around 90% told that skin regeneration was definitely better than previously to Synthesit intake, and around 10% also reported about the improved bone regeneration. And that goes to both chronic diseases like people with osteoporosis, for example, or people who are suffering from acute traumas, for example, or bone damages of other origins. So it goes both for age population and young people as well. Okay, another thing is that the cardiovascular performance was greatly improved. And it was not only cardiovascular system in terms of better cardiac activity and blood vessel supply, but also mercury circulation was improved, which was particularly interfering and relevant to better cognitive skills, as you can imagine. Finally, Synthesit revealed an immunoregulatory potential, which means that 60% of those who took Synthesit reported that anti-inflammatory effects were present. That means like autoimmune conditions were released in 50%, in 40%, and also immune system stimulation was reported in terms of better counteraction of viral and bacterial infections, which is very relevant in this hard time of COVID, I would say. Though I don't want to mention it, but yes, it's definitely important. Finally, I want to remind again that 95% of people who take Synthesit really feel better after this intake. And it's much better than we can expect from the normal iron intake. What are the mechanisms that can be behind it? So first of all, let me speak again a bit about iron metabolism. So iron is incorporated predominantly into our blood system, and it's found in the erythrocytes as a hemoglobin or in our bloodstream as a ferrum-free irons, which is not good because it leads to pro-inflammatory risks, as I was saying previously. And if we want to be successful with our iron intake, it's better to be incorporated into erythrocytes, it's better to be metabolized by our blood cells and further distributed to the iron-containing proteins in terms of their bioactive centers and better activity. And what I have to point out is that for our body, it matters which kind of iron we are taking. It's not like we take one iron and it's the same as we take another one. So here we are really lucky to find out probably one of the best known forms of iron that can be very actively intaken by our organism, readily incorporated into the cells, into the proteins, and it really changes how your body is working. So let me explain in more details how it's going on. Okay, so of course the first question is safety, as I was saying. This goes for all the drugs, all the biocompatitive agents that we are using. So the biocompatibility of Synthesit is really very high. We can see that even if we use very high concentration in the cell system, there is no toxicity for human cells. Second, we tested it in animal models, and we really give high amounts when compared to patients to primates. And there is no toxicity reported even after 3 months of applications. And of course, they survived for a longer time, and we observed them. They were perfectly fine, which is promising. Okay, so next thing is that no free iron accumulation occurs in the bloodstream of the patients, of the people who are taking Synthesit. And what it means that we are safe from inflammations that can develop in the blood. We are safe from side effects when we are taking Synthesit. Another thing is that also Synthesit was shown to stimulate immune system. It doesn't lead to activation of inflammatory responses because when you use Synthesit to treat blood monocytes, which are the major inflammatory agents in our bloodstream, there is no expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines. So for example, if you expect someone who is already having inflammation and he or she is taking iron, of course there is a risk that there will be even higher inflammation. Well, not in this case, okay? In this case, all the pro-inflammatory cytokines, which is IL-6, interleukin-6, interleukin-1 beta, and chemokine CCL2, which you all know from COVID story nowadays, are reduced when you use Synthesit. Vice versa, the arginase-1, which is a major regenerative and anti-inflammatory cytokine, is upregulated when you take Synthesit. So this is a good sign for our body. So, okay, now we know it's safe and it's anti-inflammatory. What's next? So the next thing we are looking at is hematopoietic system. Hematopoiesis is one of the important events that is involved in our blood metabolism, in our immunity, in our overall well-being. and daily life quality. And the major cell populations that you can find in the blood are platelets, monocytes, red blood cells, and lymphocytes, and they are important for iron storage, immunity, and for general nutrient and oxygen supply throughout your whole body. Okay, so when we take Syntazid, basically we see activation of all the hematopoietic pathways. So the number of all blood cells are increased when you intake Syntazid. I have to point out that this is not very common when you see it with the iron intake in terms of general supplementation. Usually, when you take iron, you only see your platelet level increased and your erythrocyte level increased, because these are two major populations that are associated with the iron metabolism. However, here we also see that monocytes number and lymphocyte number are increased. And what it means for us is that monocytes and lymphocytes are the major cell population involved in immune response, which means that we have better immunity and better defense against viral and bacterial infection when we intake Syntazid. Moreover, when the platelets, new platelets, are synthesized in presence of iron, we can say that it has antithrombotic and pro-regenerative potential, which is particularly good in this case. Second thing is, of course, increase in red blood cell amount, because you have more hemoglobin, you have more iron in general, and that's how it works, basically. So, I want to point out that all the cell populations in the bloodstream are increased in their levels, and they are more tend to be pro-regenerative and protective for us when we use Syntazid rather than other iron compounds. Okay. Another important thing that we were looking at is whether our product can impact somehow aging. And the two major enzymes that are involved in the aging processes are considered to be adenosine deaminase and xanthine oxidase. And these are also the markers of aging and the markers of oncogenic processes in our body that are increasing with age. And as you can see, indeed, the people who that we investigated persons of two groups, from 40 to 69 and from 59, and from those who are 60 to 79, and we see that adenosine deaminase and xanthine oxidase are increasing with age. But also we see that that Syntazid can decrease the levels of adenosine oxidase, xanthine oxidase, and adenosine deaminase in our blood. So that means that it has anti-aging and pro-regenerative and protective potential. Moreover, it can also be associated with a lower risk of cancer development in the people who take Syntazid. Okay, and finally, Syntazid is essential supplements that can be used on for daily purposes, but also to restore your iron blood levels. It's suitable for anemia prevention, but also for increasing of your regenerative potentials, protection from viral and bacterial infections, protection from aging, and it may also be a prospective therapeutics for prevention of oncological disorders. Well, finally, I want to thank all the research institutes that participating in our investigation and our research studies. And thank you for your attention. And you can also find me at the booth P307 for further questions, if you have some.
Thank you so much. So your last slide showed a few different, what looked like delivery formats. So this can be used in multiple types of applications, both supplements and foods as well. Is that possible?
In future, of course, yes. There are different supplementations. One is capsule-based, another is liquid-based. And as you can imagine, both of them can be combined with different types of products or different intake purposes. Depends on your request. For example, liquid form is adjusted and incorporated into the cell metabolism much faster when compared with capsule ones. But a capsule one is maybe more suitable for chronic treatment purposes.
Okay. Are there any concerns or contraindications when you're looking at multi-ingredient formulations? Does it work really well with certain ingredients, or does it have any challenges?
Well, there are some limitations that probably it's better to take in the morning before food intake because it's really overlapping with lactate-containing products such as dairy products, milk, and so on. However, even if when combined with different food types, it still has very substantial benefits.
Were there any questions? They just looked cheery. All right. Well, thank you so much for some really wonderful information and certainly can drive some product innovation.
Thank you.